What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and welcome to another video. Today, this showed up. Now, I've been meaning to talk about this for a minute, and it's so big that I have to do this on the table in my dining room. So we're going to talk about the Siege Omega Supreme. I've been waiting for this for a minute. He's been really hard to come by because, as usual, he sold out as soon as he came out. I had to pre-order him, or order him from Big Bad Toy Store and wait for them to get more, and I am really glad I did. I mean, I didn't get into the G1 stuff because it didn't look like what I saw in the cartoon in most cases, so I waited and waited. I saw all the third-party versions, and everybody did their own little take on it, and it just didn't necessarily, in my opinion, have the feel that I was looking for. And yes, my box came kind of jacked up, but it was missing something, and this one had exactly what I was looking for, and it was a price I could afford. So I was like, yoink. And everything about Siege seems to be on point, so I'm here. Big thing you'll notice, I mean, he comes in the package in bot mode, and he is huge. He's huge. He's super huge, and it's a sight to behold. There's his little partner. I'm going to get into detail about all of these parts and everything that comes with him. I was just amazed to get this guy and see how big he is. There he is next to a 4-inch figure from Vitruvian Hacks, and you can see he towers over everything. I don't know. It's the biggest bot that I own, and I own the 18-inch Voltron, who previously was the biggest bot that I owned. So I am geeked about this. I am happy I was able to get him from Big Bad Toy Store, because everywhere else had him for well over 200 bucks, and no, he's not a $200 figure. This was a regular retail release at a price that most people could afford. Therefore, that is what I am paying. Fuck this nonsense of secondary market charging these prices that only rich people can afford. Fuck that. This was made regular retail for the rest of us, so I am there. So let's jump into what makes this guy amazing. The tank. Let's talk about the tank. So you will have to transform him once you open him up. I'm starting with the tank because I did not have Omega Supreme as a child, and the reason why I didn't go after them is because, like I mentioned earlier, is that the G1 stuff, the figures did not represent, they didn't do a good job representing what we saw on screen. You had to fill in a lot of blanks with your imagination, and I did not like that. The Siege stuff does it really well, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm all about this line. And it's a tank. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? It's dope. It's not motorized like the original one was, but I don't need that kind of shit. I am all about creating the action and the figure giving me the ability to do so. So you can see there's tons of detail everywhere, lots of little bits of articulation. All the cannons on the tank can move up and down. They do not rotate, especially the main turret, but I don't need that necessarily. I could just have the tank pull a metal slug and turn its body where it needs to be and shoot in the direction that it's facing. I'm cool with that. That's not a problem for me. Again, the cannons don't swivel, so you have to just turn the tank where you want it to fire, and it can move. Each cannon can move up and down. There actually is an extra hinge on the smaller cannons for that too. And then there are effect parts. And this is dope because these effect parts are pretty big. There's a lot of them because they break apart, and there's peg holes everywhere. And the effect parts can fit in all the peg holes because they have nice little pegs. And there's peg holes even in these pegs so they can fit other places. The rocket. This rocket is nuts. It's fucking nuts. It's huge. It's huge. You're going to hear me say that a lot because, like I said, this is the biggest bot that I own. This thing just, I mean, it towers over everything, as well it should. And there's a decent amount of value, like play value in this thing, which is surprising. There's pegs, small pegs for the smaller effect parts all over it. Again, it's a huge piece. It's tall. It's dope. I was like, wow. I mean, look at it compared to the body of Omega Supreme. It's like getting a separate. I mean, it's a separate toy. You know what I'm saying? And then also, if you look closely, you can see where the actual cockpit is. And there's molded detail on the inside of the cockpit, both on the door and in the interior. And, you know, I'm moving closer so you can see all that. And it's pretty deep in there, so you can actually fit your characters in there. It's pretty dope. I was surprised. I was super surprised. I was like, what? So, you know, it's dope. So I'm amazed, and I also love the fact that you can see the cockpit when it's closed from the side and from the top, from wherever, so you can tell which direction you should be facing the cockpit. Everything does link together pretty well, but I do have an issue. It's my one issue with this beautiful thing. It's gappage, and it brings me to, you know, my problems or my issues and my nitpicks. My problems, issues, and nitpicks as usual, you know. It doesn't close up as well as you see here on the back side where the hinge is. It's not that well closed up on the other side. On the other side, as you can see, there's a decent amount of gapping and it doesn't quite snap in. I've tried different ways, and every now and then I can get it to go a little bit better, but and it also leans a little bit. You can kind of fix that if you use the articulation on the little clamps, but you know, those are my issues. And now let's talk about Countdown. This is a wonderful little minicon-ish type dude. I mean, I don't know exactly what class he would fall into, but he reminds me of the minicons from back in the day, and he is a very wonderful, cool little minicon. And I know someone in the comments is going to try to correct me and be like, it's supposed to be this. He reminds me of the minicons from back in the day. I don't know if it was Energon or Armada, one of those back in the day. They had minicons. That's what he reminds me of. Maybe they're still calling them minicons. I don't know. I don't pay attention to this stuff. I don't really collect the minicons. I only get the characters I like, and usually they're in the Legends, Deluxe, and, you know, the bigger classes. So, you know, minicon for now. That's what he reminds me of. But anyway, you can see all the details are there. The satellite dish actually, or radar dish, actually can articulate. It can go up or it can go down, which is pretty awesome considering the size of this figure. That's a tiny little detail that, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference if it's up or down or tilted like it is, but they gave you the ability to move that thing around. And as you can see, even within, you know, the obvious, like his head popping out right there, you can see details where lights should be for the rear lights. You can see where antennas should be and stuff like that, or are. There's tons of molded detail for a figure so small. I'm happy about that. I mean, it's detail that you hear a lot of people say shit like, they didn't have to do that, but they did. If they're trying to make a dope ass toy, yeah, the fuck they did have to do that. That's the whole point, you know. You want to amaze people, and you want to have some pride in your craft. So looking at this and seeing the amount of detail, you could see the love that's put into the Siege line that's just not present in some of the Marvel Legends shit, and definitely not in the G.I. Joe stuff that we've been getting. I mean, maybe in this 6-inch line, I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen, it doesn't really look that, you know, I don't know. It doesn't look like extras being done, but there's a lot of extra done in the Siege line and in the Earthrise line. It's as if someone working on those lines actually loved this shit since they were a child, and once they were given the opportunity to do this, they put all the love back into the toy line. So props to Hasbro for this. I mean, I don't praise Hasbro very much, but I have to say they've been knocking it the fuck out of the park with Siege and Earthrise. I mean, man. And so earlier I mentioned that there was another thing about the tank. The tank opens up for storage for Countdown, or, you know, other minicon sized you know, bots, probably a few Legends class bots, to be honest. But you can see he's got the perfect little like area to fit Countdown with no issues whatsoever. He fits in there snugly, and yeah, I love it. It's dope. So you can transport him around in the tank and then have him go out and do his thing. So now let's talk about the launch base. This thing is awesome. I know a lot of people were talking about the fact that it's not motorized like the original one was, but I don't need that shit. I'm a grown-ass man that still plays with toys, but I like to play with the toy, so I will move it around and do all that stuff. And it offers a decent amount of play value for, you know, some of your smaller figures, and it still looks good next to your larger figures. Like I said, this was big enough that I couldn't even do this at my review station the way I wanted to, you know what I mean? Like, so I figured on my table, let me just do it, unbox it, and, you know, open it up right there and do the review right there. So I got this on the weekend, last weekend, and I opened them up, and I just went to town on this video right there on the table shortly after, you know, taking him out of the package. I even took the pictures right then and there. But again, you see all the parts together, and it just, like, it hits you like, God damn, this is a big ass figure. This is a lot of toy. This is a shit that used to make Christmases when we were little kids, you know what I mean? I mean, I really felt like a little kid while I was opening this up and seeing all the little like compartments and the little pieces that move, and seeing where I can put the blast effects and just about everything on it. It just was like, man, there's missiles here, as you can see, 2 different types, the big old ones and then the tinier swarmers. It's just like all the little things that we see in our mind's eye when we imagine how this stuff would work once we have it in our collection. It's all right here. And, you know, for me, that's a big deal because, like I said, a lot of toys these days aren't fun. Companies are capitalizing really hard on consumers' fear of being left out or fear of missing out. So you're getting a figure that's not really as amazing as you're led to believe in many cases, but you're paying top dollar for that figure, and then you go on Facebook and Instagram and it looks like everybody has it and it's so much fun and blah blah blah, and you really can't do that much with it, you know? And you also will see those figures fade from the consciousness of the quote-unquote community, because once that week that it came out passes, no one is talking about that figure anymore, you know? But this one here, for me, because I'm not a flavor of the month collector, I mean, look at it. You can put the effects right there for those guns. You can reuse so much of what you get in so many different ways that you just never really get bored with this, you know what I mean? Like, I can replay, you know, several missions and several situations having the Autobots escape Cybertron in this, you know, if I don't want to use the Ark, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I want to do my own version, or you can have them escape a moon base with Omega Supreme, you know what I mean? And then you see how you can use the blast effects at the bottom of the rocket for the thruster. It's just, it's perfect. I mean, like, it's fucking, it's so dope. I mean, like, what, I don't know. I don't understand how anyone could get this figure and just talk about it like it's not really fun to play with, like it's not really that awesome. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I didn't have this when I was a kid. But again, effect parts, you can use the smaller effect parts as little like shots hitting the you know, the track. And you know, there's other spots on this figure, vehicle, robot, transformer, all the things together. There's other spots on there where you can peg these in, and it's just, it's awesome. And again, look at how the front of the cockpit area, just, it sticks out right there, so you know that's the cockpit of the rocket. I love it. I mean, just, I don't know, playing with this thing like I did and like I will continue to do, it feels like this was meant for people who actually play with their toys. And I say that a lot in my videos, but this is my happy place. When I'm done with work and I'm done with all the bullshit of adulting, you know, I just lose myself in my fucking toys. And this feels like a toy. It doesn't feel like a collector's centerpiece that you put on display only, although you could, because there's enough going on that it will kind of beg for some attention. You know, people will see this and be like, what in the hell is that, if they don't already know who Omega Supreme is. But like, it's not overkill either, you know what I mean? There's very specific things you do with this, and then, you know, it's really simple to transform. Now, one thing you'll notice in my videos, I don't do the transformation because it's a puzzle. I mean, that's what makes these things awesome. It's a robot, a vehicle, in this case, a vehicle and a base, and another vehicle, 2 vehicles and a base, and then a puzzle to get them from one shape to the other. I'll let you guys play around with that. The transformation's really simple. The parts that are more difficult are the rocket, and it's not really difficult, it's just involved. Everything's intuitive, and I think you'll enjoy the process. And I'm not going to rob you of the process by showing it to you, although that does serve a purpose. I'm not going to lie. There's times where, especially with like third-party bots, where I need to watch other people transform it so I can see how you do things and I don't break mine. You know what I'm saying? So props to those who show us that, but I'm not going down that route. That's not what I do. Shout out to MGO. His Just Transform It series has helped me a lot with a lot of these like parts and figures, like Siege Ultra Magnus. I hadn't transformed him for a while since I got him, and then I went to transform him and I was like, what the shit, what do I do? And then I had to look at his video, and it helps out. So anyway, that's a thing. The track, it's big enough to allow the tank to kind of precariously kind of traverse the track, you know, because the wheels underneath the tank are thin enough, or they literally just fit within the track itself to kind of guide it along the track. So I mean, even though it is big, it still fits on it, and it doesn't look that awkward, you know. Honestly, I wouldn't really be using the tank so much to be on the track as I would to use it to be around the track guarding the launch base. But I don't have issues with it. I mean, it doesn't look terrible, and it reminds me of the old thing and the thing I've been watching on the cartoon for so long. So I welcome it. It works. But all in all, you get a nice little base. It's a small base. It makes me imagine that tank is huge, because look at how big it is compared to the base portion of the launch base. So yeah, it's dope. I mean, your Titan Masters are going to look really cool in it because it's just small enough. It has that Diaclone feel, you know, where you have the tiny little dudes and you have all your tanks and your, you know, mech stuff that they're going to be working with, and it works, you know. And then it's exactly, you know, a redo of, or redux of what we got back in the G1 days, and this feels more like what we were watching on screen, and it's definitely what you're going to be watching on screen when the Netflix Siege series pops up. So I'm desperately, happily awaiting that. So yeah, I'm happy with this. This is dope. All right, and now let's talk articulation, because with a bot this big, you'll probably be wondering, I know many of you, if you haven't watched all the other, you know, folks that reviewed this, you're probably wondering, what can he do? Can he do all the things? Well, as you can see, as this blurred out picture, and you'll see in a second when it's in focus, he can do all the things. He's got every bit of articulation that the smaller Siege figures have, like all the deluxe class figures and such, and the Voyager class and the Leader class and the Commander class. He has all that same, I mean, nothing was you know, spared. No expense was spared in his articulation. It's exactly what you would expect from a Siege figure, because they have stellar articulation. There's no issues with their articulation. His hand is articulated, or claw. The head is pretty well articulated, although he doesn't really need to look up at anything because he's the biggest thing in the room in most cases, unless you have Metroplex or Fortress Maximus or something like that, and he can look up just a little bit, which you'll see in a few minutes, seconds, whatever. You'll see it shortly. He even has waist articulation, which is crazy because some of the smaller ones don't have waist articulation unless it's part of the transformation. And it is part of the transformation here, but it works as just regular waist articulation, and it's pretty dope. I was just amazed to see that he still has all the points that all the other guys have, and it works. He's very well balanced, and it's just impressive, man, the amount of things that they were able to do and not sacrifice anything in the process. You know what I mean? Like, so often you get figures where they can do all the things, but they just aren't, they sacrifice stuff in order to do it. You know, either it's the sculpt, or, you know, they sacrifice range of motion to give you a cooler sculpt, or they sacrifice the sculpt to give you ridiculous range of motion. And in this case, you have all the things. Those arms are fully articulated. Everywhere I want to make them move, he can move, which is, it's fucking dope. I took a page out of Randy Sioman's book of tricks when it comes to showing off the articulation. Instead of doing a play-by-play like each piece of articulation, I put him in a pose where you can see a little bit of everything, so you understand what he can do and, you know, what he can't do. And I took some time to focus on some other things, like the head. You see it's tilted up, it's turned to the side. He has, you know, the swivel on both sides. He has the up and down a little bit, and he has light piping. You know, we don't often see that, but they've been incorporating light piping again, which is something that we don't see much of, and we haven't really seen much of since the original Classics days, which I love, because I don't need lights and sounds. You know what I mean? I don't need the gimmickry. I just need little things for when I want to use it. You know, if I want to shine a light in the back of his head, or, you know, near the top, to get light to come through to make his face glow, I can do that. I have small LED lights that I can use that for. If I don't want to, I don't have to. So it's there, but it's not, you know, in the way. You know, it's not interrupting what I want to do with the figure. You know, if I want to pose him, I don't have to worry about switches and, you know, panels to hide the switch that turns the lights on, or whatever the gimmick may be, because they're keeping it fairly old school, and that's perfect for me. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you know I hate gimmickry. Don't give me a whole shitload of gimmicks where I have to press this switch and flip this thing and turn this thing. Fuck that. I just want to play with the thing the way it is, because I'm a big kid and I will supply the action myself. Also, a scale thing. Look at Countdown compared to his head, compared to Omega Supreme's head. That is a big boy. Man, it's just crazy, because I never thought I would see this, because I mean, I know we're getting there. You know, we finally have gotten to a point where Transformers are kind of relatively, you know, some kind of, how do I put this? They are representing the scale that they're supposed to be in universe in the toy line. Whereas back in the day, especially the G1 days, that wasn't well done. You can say all you want to say about all the praise people want to give G1. That wasn't well done back in the day. I mean, Omega Supreme was not that big compared to, you know, your Optimuses and everybody else. He was very small and, you know, kind of squat. You know what I'm saying? So I'm welcoming this. But back to the articulation. So he's got the swivel in the arm. He's got a swivel in the gun portion, like where the wrist would be. He also has I think he also has a swivel at the elbow as well. And there's these very well done ratchets with nice detents. So you can kind of see some of them right there in the elbow joint. But yeah, whatever pose you put him in, whatever position you put him in, he will hold it. You don't have to worry about, you know, the joints giving out on you or anything like that. They're not going to give out. They're going to stay right there. And I didn't have any of the issues that a lot of people had with Trypticon in his hips, where it's like the ratchets were too hard and you're warping the mechanism whenever you use it. It doesn't feel like that here at all. They're very buttery, for lack of a better term. You can easily just click them and they go where they need to go, and they hold where they need to hold very tightly. But yeah, you can see that the elbow joint pegs into the bicep assembly, and it can actually swivel with no problem. I don't think there's as much clickage or detent going on in that area. It's there, don't get me wrong, but it's softer than at the elbow, and it's softer than at the shoulder, which for me is no problem at all, because you need that. Like I said, if you want him to hold up any of your other bots, a lot of the deluxe class figures, definitely the commander class, you know, Jetfire, if he was to hold them up, which I really wouldn't make him hold Jetfire. He's supposed to still be ginormous compared to Jetfire, but you know, if you had him holding anybody, you know, like how he did in War for Cybertron in the game, how he like picked up one of the dudes and just spun him around and just tossed him. If I try to do that, he can hold him, you know, because he's got the detents and he's not fall, you know, his arm won't fall down. The claw has shit ton of articulation at the base, and then I want to say another joint in the center of each of the fingers of the claw, which is dope because it does what you need it to do. It can clamp onto things, it can spread out and be open to work as a tripod type deal for the rocket when you have him in the rocket mode, and then when you want to open it up a little bit more just to have it kind of shoot at whatever, because the tips have those like blaster pieces on them, or blaster, it's like sculpted detail of the blasters that he usually shoots folks with. You can do that too, like you'll see in the next slide. It's pretty dope. I was like, yeah. It works. I mean, you're just hearing me repeat myself about how well engineered this figure is. All the issues that I have with a lot of Hasbro's mainstream releases and other things, I just don't have them here, and I haven't had them with any of the Siege line, with the exception of maybe Megatron, which was kind of disappointing. But it's just a well done articulation scheme. I don't really have issues with this claw at all. It rotates because he does have articulation at the wrist, as well as at the bicep, you know, the twist or swivel. He still has the detents just like on the other side, in the shoulder and the elbow, and there actually are some detents in the claw itself, like at the base of the claw. You can kind of see them if you look closely. The little gray parts on the hinge have detents in them. So yeah, I love what they've done here. It works perfectly, and I don't have anything else that I need it to do. And like as you see here, it can close very tightly, and it looks perfect. If he was holding like a Minicon or a Legends class figure, it's perfect. Size wise, it's perfect. Just aesthetically, it looks right. And the translucent plastic used, it's that tight, not tight, that tough, I always call it the invincible plastic. If you ever try to burn it, it just doesn't burn properly. I mean, you really got to get things hot to melt it. It's what a lot of like children's toys are made out of, and this shit it's pretty tough. So, you know, I guess they took that into consideration because they know that people are going to make him grab things with his claw hand, so it's made to withstand all the play. Now in his torso, like you can see, it twists at the waist. That's crazy. Like, you wouldn't think something this big would have that kind of articulation, and he does, and it works. I don't think it clicks very much. It may click, I can't remember. I think it does click a little, so you do have some detents. I mean, most of his joints have detents because he needs to be able to hold the poses, but I might be wrong. He may not swivel with detents at the waist, but either way, it holds whatever you want to do with him. So if you twist him, he's gonna hold it. It's not gonna get all swivelly and like loose, because you know a lot of figures do that over time. Like, you turn it enough, it's like it rubs away the friction and then it just swivels on its own. This holds what I want it to hold. So yeah, I dig that. Hold up, let me double check real quick. So yeah, I went back to check. It does have the ratchets, and the detents are pretty I want to say they're smaller, so you can kind of click, then click, then click, then click, then click, then click, and it holds perfectly. So yeah, like most of his joints, he's got detents in the hips. His thighs are the same way. Detents in the thighs, both at the crotch joint and at the thigh swivel itself. Well, not the swivel, the thigh joint itself for lateral movement. You can kind of see them right there in the picture on the left-hand side. So he holds the pose that you put him in. If you want him to hold his leg up and kick, he can hold his leg up and kick. There's a lot of space there so that he can actually move freely, and you don't have to worry about, you know, his legs bumping into the rest of his body. I don't know, it works really well. I'm glad they did that because I wouldn't have thought that they would do such a thing, but it makes perfect sense if you're thinking about how this figure would be used. He can actually hold the poses that you put him in with no problem. At the knee, there's a bend at the knee. He's got several detents there, although these are a little bit more buttery than the others, but he holds his pose perfectly and firmly. None of the transforming bits in his thighs get in the way of this bend, and the bend can go pretty far. I have him bent here a little less than 90 degrees, and he can go a little bit. I want to say it's 90. He can go exactly 90, maybe a little bit past that if you push it. But yeah, no issues there. It holds perfectly. And then there is a swivel, like I said, at the thigh, and then you have at the bottom of his, his feet. You've got the forward and back motion, as well as a pivot, which is pretty nice. I wouldn't have expected him to have a pivot. You don't really use the pivot in the transformation, but it's here. So for these wide-legged stances like I have him in, which, I mean, you probably never see him do. Yeah, I mean, you can do it if you want, and it's dope. And then on top of that, you see there's a peg hole for blast effects. And then there's another piece to, what he can do. Like I said, this is just so much well-done goodness in this figure. That yellow portion is actually a door that reveals a very big storage space in his ankle, or shin rather, inside his shin. I love this because, like I said, he comes with a ton of accessories and whatnot, and so now you have a space to put that stuff if you want to. You can put Countdown in there if you just want to keep him with Omega at all times and you don't want to lose track of him. I dig it, and there's a lot of space there. At first I was like, damn, that's cool. They made a little space there. I could put a little bit of stuff in there. And then I played around with him for a bit, and I was like, damn, this space just it's the full like width and length of his shin, which is pretty awesome, or the lower leg, I guess, which is pretty awesome. It's almost like you have a boot to put stuff in, I mean, look how far back Countdown can go inside that that space. So you can put a lot of stuff there. I mean, if you have other characters and you want to store their weapons and you don't want to put them in a weapons box or something, you can put them in here, and I mean, it's a good place to have him. He is a Transformer. You will look at that stuff when you're playing with him. You'll hear it moving around if you try to transform him. So it's a good place to keep your your Transformers, or your pieces for your Transformers. So props to them for that. It's not just for show, you know what I mean? I was able to put all the blast effects in there with Countdown, and there was still a little bit of room. So it's nice when they do stuff like this. You know me, I love weapon storage, and I love when there's a little baggie to put your accessories in, like your Figmas have and like the 112 collective figures have. So seeing that he has like built-in storage, which makes sense because he turns into a base, it's perfect. There's nothing really more to ask for. I dig that. And then lastly, we have the instruction manuals. You get two of them, one in Japanese and one in English. And I think if you look closely, there may be some of the other languages on there, but I'm not focused on those other languages. I barely even use these instructions. I was just tripped out to see two sets of, or two manuals, because I'm like, wow, they're really giving us a lot of extra. It felt like they were running out of things to they were trying to figure out, like, what else can we include in the box? Oh, I know, two languages. Let's have the instructions in two different languages, and it's two languages that are probably the least common in the world, you know what I mean? But well, one of which is more common and one is one of the least in the world. But hey, it works. These things are big in Japan as well, so may as well look out for the motherland of the Transformer. All right, so let's compare. I love doing these. I don't get to do them as much as I want to, but as you can see, I've got more Siege stuff, got a Voltron figure, and I have my NBK Devastator, or not Devastator, however you want to look at it. And as you can see, you can see part of Omega Supreme's legs in the background, and so far you're not seeing very much of his body because he towers over everybody. Like, look how small Optimus looks compared to these guys. Matter of fact, he makes Jetfire look kind of small. It's nuts. The NBK Devastator and my 18-inch Voltron or maybe he's 16 inches. He's pretty tall too. Like I said previously, those two were my biggest bots, and now you see that they're coming up to Omega Supreme's stomach. It's like, and like I said, this was a retail release that it retailed at like $150 or something like that, or $140. So, you know, the fact that this was made for the retail market, for just us regular people, not the super rich folks that can buy every fucking Transformers release that ever is released. It's nice that we, you know, Hasbro is thinking of the regular folks. They didn't aim all this towards the HasLab crowd that just is like, take my money, and wants to like diarrhea, you know, cash all over Hasbro, you know, just face, neck, and chest money for Hasbro, just Instead, they made it so that the rest of us can afford it, and the rest of us can enjoy what is usually these days kind of held aside or specified for those with super deep pockets. You know what I mean? Like, I work for mine, and I got 2 kids. One is going off to college right now, and I got a younger one that's, little kids are expensive. Kids are expensive. You know what I mean? Little kids are really expensive. And then when they're in college, that's expensive too. I mean, good job getting your scholarship though. But we still got to pick up the other stuff. So yeah, it's nice that I didn't have to break the bank just to relax and play with my figure, you know? It's worth it. And then here comes the bottom line. So I'm going to cut right to the chase with this one, because as you've heard from everything that I pointed out in the review, this figure's quality. It checks off all the boxes. He's got the size that you want for Omega Supreme. I mean, he's called Omega Supreme, not Omega Mediocre, not Omega Minimus, not kinda cool, not, you know what I mean? Not something less than. He's supposed to be this big ass powerful bot, and you get that. You know, he feels like he is the right relative scale, which is what I've been talking about for years, especially when it comes to like G.I. Joe and, you know, some of the smaller lines. Relative scale works for me. I don't need it to be exact, relative. So as long as he looks tall and he's on the taller end and he's bigger and, you know, bulkier than some of my other bots, I'm good, because it's relative. He's got a ton of simple to transform parts, or he's got easily transformable parts. So when you're trying to transform him into his alt modes, it's not hard. You know, it's actually, you could figure it out just by looking at the parts when you take him out of the package and you decide to transform him. It's not hard at all. He's very durable. There's lots of playability in his you know, his effect parts and just the figure itself, and integration into the line in general. I didn't mention that there are parts that connect to some of the other bases. It seems like everything they've been doing since, what is it, Power of the Primes, whenever there's a base mode, they have these little like ramps and stuff, and pathways, you know, like streets and bridges and things like that, and you can connect them if you know, they have like a little hinge, snap-in hinge system they can connect to. And, you know, I'm not going to connect him to anything, but if you wanted to, you could. You know what I'm saying? So really, 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 really well done and well integrated play features. I mean, it's just, it's what you want if you're not one of those hardcore, you know, taking out a loan to buy your fucking Transformers, or, you know, you're wealthy and you can just afford to buy everything. I keep on driving this point home, because these days, when, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, oil prices, petroleum prices are not at their highest, we shouldn't be paying premiums on our action figures, which are made from plastic. Plastic is cheap. You know, if you ever look up the price for ABS per pound for ABS and PVC, you'll see that we're getting completely bent over when it comes to the prices. If they keep it relatively reasonable like this is, then you really do get the fun out of it as an adult. You know, as a kid, you don't even think about that stuff because mom and dad foot the bill for you. But as an adult, when you go out and you buy your own shit, you really get to see, you know, like, did I get my money's worth? Can this thing do the things that I was told it could do, you know, or the things I wanted it to do? Can it do it? And yes, Omega Supreme can do it. So I think that anyone who can find him for $160, or less, slightly less, you know, maybe a little bit more. I think when all is said and done, I paid 180 for him because of shipping. And I got him at Big Bad Toy Store. You know, I don't really like Big Bad Toy Store. They take too long to ship. They sit on your figures for way too long. Once a figure is released, you'll get your figure from them after every other retailer has already got their stock and shipped it. And it frustrates me because they're the ones that seem to sponsor just about every toy reviewer on the damn planet. You know, they probably won't sponsor me because you hear me say this often. So I'm not necessarily saying they're the best, but they did have the best price for Omega Supreme. So if you can find him, and if he's in stock, because I know ODC and I did this, we paid for ours about the same time, and I got mine first, and he didn't even get a call yet for his. So I don't know what their situation is. Maybe because he's a large item, they're getting them in 1 or 2 at a time, so it's going to be a long time as they do this. But you know, there's several Transformers retailers. If you have to go to a Japanese retailer to get him at a regular cost and then get him, pay the $20 for DHL to ship it to you in 2 days, do it. It's worth it. You know what I mean? This is definitely a worthwhile purchase. You know, if you don't have many giant bots and space is an issue, and for me it's always an issue because I don't want to overload my space, my man cave, keep it in mind, you know what I mean? And then look at this figure, find him at a reasonable price. I can't stress that enough. Do not pay $300 for him like they did with with Metroplex and Fort Max and all them. They're not $300-400 figures, you know what I mean? Like there's hollow plastic in a lot of places because they're bases. It makes sense. It's not a bad thing in this case. And there, you know, there are figures about the same height. I mean, like what's the guy's name? Triptychon is roughly the same size, and he's still going for $80 to $100. But because Triptychon isn't as popular as Omega Supreme and Maximus and Metroplex, you're just going to pay $400 for Metroplex, $300 or $400 for Fortress Maximus, and then somehow comparably sized other figures are going to go for less. Like, don't play into that shit. If you have to wait. Look for him and get him for as close to the 150, 160 as you can. He is worth it. I mean, there's not really much else to say. This is something I waited for a long time because, like I said, as a kid, and I still don't really dig G1 stuff because it doesn't always, and in most cases, it doesn't represent very well what I was watching on screen, and I grew up with the cartoon. I want what I saw on screen. I want my bots to pose. I want them to be able to be integrated in, you know, my play together. You know, I want my my scale to be relative, like I keep mentioning, and you know, that wasn't the case with G1. We had to do a lot of mental heavy lifting when it comes to using our imagination to fill in the gaps and pretend that things were the way they were supposed to be. And here, you just pretend your explosions and shit, even that you don't even have to do because they give you effect parts. You just pretend, you know, things move by making them move. You know what I'm saying? Like, you actually get to focus on playing with the figure, which is something that is lost on a lot of people because they collect so they can keep up with the Joneses, and that's not what collecting is all about. Not for most of us. You know, if you really love action figures and the art of, you know, toys and just the representations of three-dimensional, small three-dimensional representations of your favorite characters, that you can create your own action and recreate scenes from your favorite shows and things like that. You know, this is what we do. This is what we're doing this for. It's not just to keep up with the Joneses. So by all means, get this guy. Don't pay too much. I mean, if you have to and you have it like that, then go ahead, do it. You won't be sorry. It's worth it. But I personally don't feel this is a $300 toy like some people do. And you'll see he goes for that much on eBay and other places. So try to avoid that. So anyway, this has been my look at the Siege Omega Supreme by Hasbro. This guy is amazing, well worth the time, the effort, and it's easily an S-Class figure. Easily an S-Class figure. I have very mild complaints, and even the mild complaints don't take away from what you can do with the figure and what you can do with him as a figure in your collection, in your Transformers collection, outweighs all the other shit. So I'm completely happy with him. That's like childhood dream unlocked. I think you guys should jump on him if you can. You will not be sorry. And that's my story, and I'm fucking sticking to it. So that is it for me. You guys have been great. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you like what I'm doing, as always, subscribe, click the like button, click the dislike button if you hate what I'm saying and you don't feel me at all. It all helps. Comment, chat amongst yourselves, chat with me. I mean, I talk to you guys in the comments. You can hit me up on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can also hit me up on Patreon. All that helps. And yeah, you guys have been great. Peace outside.